Today's System X seminar was really interesting. Two people from ASML came and presented their journey into developing EUV lithography, which I think is, some of the most important technology actually existing on the planet right now. So I think what's really interesting about this presentation is, next to the technical details that they offered, is more, in my opinion, the sort of the cultural aspect of developing such an important technology, and how a couple of engineers really worked on very difficult technical concepts that took decades to develop and commercialize, and how an organization led by, according to Rob, their CTO, was a visionary who saw this, and the CEO was willing to subscribe to a long-term investment. And I think all these combinations together actually are a very good example of what it really takes to change something and innovate and move the envelope to the point where you actually really make an impact. It takes human guts. It takes risk. It's not the knowledge and the technology per se. As they presented in their presentation, the technology was available in different places, particularly in Japan, which is interesting how Japanese technology has proliferated throughout the tech space, whether it's in EUV lithography or whether it's flash memory that actually enabled the iPod and later on the iPhone. So a lot of this technology was available, but it took people with lots of vision to actually commercialize this. And of course, for us here at Orange Capital Partners, this resonates very well with our investment principles, whether it's 0 to 1 or the innovator's dilemma or the beginning of infinity. All these concepts, these big concepts, are or McKelvey's innovation stack, like they all encompass the same idea, which is you go on a journey, you keep solving problems, creating new problems, solving problems until you get a product to market that truly can make a difference. This is not even on podcast. It's February 6, 2025. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is down 20 basis points. The market's up 50 basis points. For the year, we are down 7.5%. The market's up 3%. We're underperforming by 10.5%. So today's presentation was to people from ASML. The links in the show notes with the names and the bios. Both of them have worked for decades in the area as researchers, as scientists, as engineers, as business people. I think it's a unique, really unique opportunity for anybody who can attend such a seminar to just get firsthand experience from how it felt to commercialize a technology that took 30 years to develop. And I asked the question at the end, how does this feel? How was the actual, was this a Hail Mary, or was this sort of a step-by-step, we know what we're doing kind of thing? And the answer wasn't really clear. I think it was probably a little bit of both. On the one hand, they knew, of course, what they were doing, but on the other hand, they needed a lot of faith and a lot of courage, and they emphasized the importance of their chief technology officer at ASML, who actually commercialized the product with them. So I think from a technical perspective, EUV lithography is the idea that you use light and you create a pattern of light that mimics the circuit board on a wafer, and then you shine that light through a mask and then etch the actual circuits onto the wafer. So that's kind of the way I understand it. And what's really interesting about this technology is that it took us several important innovations to happen. One is laser light had to be developed to the point where it can be delivered at very small wavelengths, very high energy small wavelengths, which is the same thing, and also with very high precision. You need materials for masks that also have incredibly high precision. You need isolation materials, vacuum technology that allows these machines to work in vacuum, because you can't even have air interfering with the light. It would disturb the precision. And then you also need optical technology like lenses that help guide the light to the point where it needs to be. So there's there's a lot of optics, a lot of physics, a lot of math. There's computational lithography, so you have the way the actual lasers work is also there's a lot of computation involved. Like you have to kind of anticipate where certain particles will be and then hit them with certain lasers to generate certain patterns. So all of these things require a lot of math. So, and actually one of the presenters is a specialist in computational lithography, and the other is more of the physics person. What I want to take away from this and bring across here is actually more the symbolic and cultural aspect of this endeavor. And this reminds us, like I said in the prelude of our investments, I mean, that's how we think, that's what we invest in people like Jensen and Elon and others. I mean, there's others, Brian Armstrong at the Coinbase, and there's the Spotify people, Netflix. So there's tons of companies out there that have such people, but there's only a few that really are doing very, very big things like ASML is doing with EUV lithography. Let me just set this sort of the lay of the land, if you will. Without EUV lithography, there would be no ChatGPT, there would be no FSD Tesla, there would be no SpaceX, there would be pretty much nothing that we enjoy today in terms of using semiconductor technology and AI, because the computational cost, the energy cost, and all of these things would be just way too high. Because of the ability to make to keep driving Moore's law, and that was the main message of the presentation. Moore's law is going to keep going. We have this ability to have Moore's law plus. Actually, we have Moore's law plus because, as we know from NVIDIA, it's not just Moore's law, but it's also on top of that we have things like quantization and pruning and the latest technologies with DeepSeek and stuff. So it's not just about having more transistors on a die. It's a little bit more than that, but still, that's the backbone of the of the future of the next 20, 30 years of industry, of economics, because everything is going to be driven by computation, and EUV lithography allows computation at scale and price and energy budget that it has been unprecedented. So what I wanted to say here is just again the importance of having a CEO with a vision, importance of having a CEO that takes the risk and also puts people accountable against goals that are very high but also achievable. The ability to iterate fast, to learn fast. I was not able to extract from them exactly how they were iterating. I also didn't have time to discuss too much after the presentation. But my point is, I think what's important is to have an organization that has very high ambition, that has a very clear way of iteration. In other words, clear goals, accountable goals, and then very quickly adapts if some of these goals cannot be met. So that's kind of the way we see it, and I think ASML is a good example. And I just wanted to mention this here. Again, the actual technology behind the ASML is beyond my understanding, and I don't think it's worth going too deep into the weeds here of how this works. But maybe just one last thing also in terms of sort of the future for technology and business in general. I think what they said, they meant it more for students, but I think it applies to not just students, but even companies or economies. Learn as much physics and as much math as you can, and then learn to apply it to engineering projects. I think this is what the future of any kind of economy will look like. And some economies are better than this than others. Silicon Valley is pretty good at it. Some of the Chinese regions are very good at it. Others aren't so good at it. Again, deep understanding of physics and math, and then apply it to engineering projects. And I think this is what SpaceX is doing. This is what Tesla is doing. This is what ASML is doing. And to some extent, other companies, like I said, Spotify and Netflix, maybe are not as deep in the physics and the math, but they have this vision that they rewrite code, or they set out to build an infrastructure that maybe doesn't look very compelling right now, but at some point will be sort of common ground. And Tesla's doing this with FSD, with Dojo, with writing code, developing operating systems for the car, developing a software-defined car. Like all these things maybe they look, sometimes they look in the early stages, they look, almost like a waste, maybe not a waste of money, but it's like, okay, where's the revenue? Where's the revenue with FST? But in a couple of years, it could be like, well, if you don't have FST, you don't have transportation. So it could flip very quickly. The same way EUV lithography for until 2019 was just a concept, and now the whole computer industry is based on it. So it can go very quickly. Once these types of infrastructure investments start paying off, they really become sort of the ground for everything else, and that's when wealth is created, that's when progress happens, and that's when good things happen. Thank you.